Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We've called it Drive Your 2019 Content Marketing Strategy with Mintent's SEO Insights. My name's Matt Dion, and I am the CEO of Mintent. And today joining me is Jeff Riddall, who is our Vice President of Product, and he also heads up our customer success team. A couple of housekeeping items before we start. We will be taking questions. There's a Q&A button, and feel free anytime to submit the questions. We won't answer them as we go along because it's quite a short presentation today, but we will answer them all at the end. We'll get to as many as we can. And if we don't get to them, then we'll send you an email. We're also recording the session, and we'll be sending that out afterwards. So if you have other folks in your team that you want to share it with, feel free to do that. So just before we begin, I'll tell you a little bit about Mintent. If you're not familiar with Mintent, we're a content marketing platform, and our software helps marketers with the whole content life cycle, from planning, creation, distribution, and measurement. Now, we've recently merged two companies together. There was Mintent, and you may have seen our announcement that we acquired a company called gShift, where Jeff is from, and we're bringing those organizations together. And I could see on the call today that on the webinar we have a bunch of Mintent customers, and we have some gShift customers, and some hopefully new customers. So we'll be talking about the synergies of the software and why we brought these two companies together. So we at Mintent, I'm a marketer myself, and we talk to marketers every day. And I've kind of noticed a shift in the last few years that's accelerating more and more as marketing is becoming a more important part of the overall organization. We're not just generating leads or that type of thing anymore. We're really involved in the entire life cycle of our customers, and so we're getting more responsibility and more budget, more people, that kind of thing. And that's good, I think, for all of us, but we can't really run our departments on experience and gut feel anymore. I mean, that's important, but we need data, we need evidence, and we need that for two reasons: to help us figure out what we should be doing, and then secondly, to show ourselves and our rest of our team and our bosses that it's working. So when we come down to content, marketing really has to know what kind of content they should create and if it's really having an impact on the business. So we like to say, stop random acts of content. Stop just brainstorming and coming up with lots of ideas, producing as much as your budget will allow, and then sending it out to every channel and crossing your fingers. And so with Mintent, prior to the acquisition, we had a calendar and workflows, and it was a really good tool to help people efficiently produce content. But our customers kept asking us, how do I know what content I should be creating? And how do I know when I send it out there if it's really getting to my audience, if it's having an impact? And we couldn't really help with that before, and now we can. That was the whole reason we brought gShift and Mintent together, was to give people the data and the evidence to help them figure out what content they should be creating. And then, of course, in Mintent, you can produce that collaboratively, effectively. And then when you distribute it, you can now track it and see if it's actually getting engagement, and whether that engagement is, leading back to sale of your product. So that's the high level story. And what we wanted to do today was kind of the first time that we're publicly, kind of showing all of the products and how they work together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, who's going to blow your mind.
Thanks, Matt. That's quite the challenge to blow minds. Hello, everyone, and thank you for your time and attention today. So yeah, I'm going to walk you through our combined SEO, content marketing, and trackable links modules to give you a sense, as Matt said, of how the SEO side can really help to inform the content that you're creating, and then ultimately using our trackable links to optimize campaigns as you're running them for ultimately organic visibility. So where I want to start is by just giving you some context We're looking at the SEO module side of things, and everything for us within this module is about understanding the visibility of your web presence. And so it's important to start by understanding what a web presence is. And for us, it really is comprised of everything above these blue buttons. When we first configure a web presence within the SEO module, we can start with something as simple as just a website and some keywords, a handful of keywords to seed the system. But ultimately, the presence is made up, as I say, of everything above these blue buttons. It's your website or sites. In some organizations, there's multiple sites. And again, to give you a bit of context, this is an actual client we're looking at. We labeled them Global Sawmills. They actually have a couple of websites. Really interesting business, actually. They're a global manufacturer of portable sawmills, of all things. So strap a sawmill to the back of your vehicle, drive out in the bush and cut your own lumber. And they're selling those worldwide. So in multiple languages, in multiple geographies. And ultimately, they're wanting to understand their overall visibility. So their visibility based on keywords.
Wait one second, Jeff. Matt's
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Jeff, I sort of see a half screen of software and a half screen of slides.
Okay. Let me just try resharing my desktop.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yep, perfect.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. Always a technical glitch. Just gotta love technology. So as I'll go back and just quickly point out again, what we're effectively looking at here is the configuration of a web presence. So everything above these blue buttons represents a presence. It's made up of a website or websites. Some organizations have more than one primary website. It's made up of some keywords, and this keyword list is going to grow over time. I mentioned earlier we would start with a seed list of keywords, a handful of those primary keywords that you want to be found for. And then we build on that, and we provide keyword research tools within the platform to help you identify the right keywords and the ones that you're wanting to ultimately build your organic visibility around. That organic visibility is effectively made up of your content, the content that resides in your website, which we refer to as on-site content. But then there may also be, and generally speaking, there is off-site content as well, things like your social accounts, external press releases, maybe external blog posts. Those are all points of presence that you maintain that represent part of your organic visibility in ways that that your audience can integrate with your brand. In addition to that, we want to understand to some degree your social presence and your social proof. How much is your content being read, liked, and shared? And so we authenticate into the primary social engines out there, including YouTube. We actually look at YouTube as both a social engine as well as a search engine. And to speak to that, I mentioned keywords. The primary reason we're following or tracking keywords is to understand your visibility in the search engines. And we cover search engines at a global level, so think google.com. At a local level, think google.com in New York City. And at a mobile level, so google.com in New York City on a mobile device. It's obviously increasingly important to understand that mobile visibility these days. And so there's that opportunity to really understand, again, how visible are you from those three different perspectives. The other piece that is incorporated into a presence is Google Analytics or analytics data. We want to understand traffic, where your traffic's coming from, particularly from an organic perspective, but we can understand the different channels that are driving traffic to your site. We can understand conversions that you may be receiving from those different channels, and really just helping to inform, again, the overall the visibility that you're looking to achieve. Last but not least, not part of your presence, but certainly helpful in informing your presence and maybe the steps you should take to improve overall, is just understanding your competitors. So we can plug in some quote unquote known competitors, but also help with competitive research and just really understanding who our competitors actually are. And I'll jump into that as we go a little deeper. So all of that effectively constitutes the configuration of a presence. We take this as a starting point and then ultimately use that to monitor the ongoing optimization and progress that you're making from an organic visibility perspective. One of the primary places we do that is within this dashboard. We came up with a dashboard strategy a couple of years ago because we realized the reason for gShift is to pull in data from a myriad of sources. You've already seen keywords, content, social, analytics data. And in order to really help focus attention, we needed to come up with a dashboard strategy. We've created some templated dashboards like this one, which is our primary dashboard, as the name suggests, Web Presence Overview, which is meant to give you an overall sense of how your web presence is performing, as well as providing some discovery tools in terms of understanding the right keywords, the right content, and or the right competitors to be paying attention to. But these dashboards are all custom configurable as well. So if this is too much or perhaps too little data, we have an entire library of what we call beacons or widgets that can be used to better understand and get more granular insights into things like analytics or website traffic, keyword data, or competitive visibility. Now, we wanted to focus this webinar around, again, understanding how we can use data to improve our content marketing process, and then extend that through to leveraging a platform like our content marketing platform in Mintent, and then ultimately Trackable Links. So at a very high level, as I mentioned, this dashboard is about understanding sort of insights at a top level. How's my traffic performing? How are my keywords performing? What sort of visibility do I have relative to my competitors? As I scroll down, as I mentioned, we can do some discovery here. We can look to see what are other potential keywords we should be paying attention to. What are pieces of content that we're not currently specifically focused on that perhaps we should be following, and then understanding how to optimize. Or who are our competitors? In this case, we're taking a group of keywords. We're looking to see which domains are consistently showing up within those top 50 search results that we obtain, so that we can really understand who our true online competitors are. Quite often, when we work with clients, they come with an understanding of who their competitors are in the real world, but when it comes to online, it could be quite a different story. And ultimately, we want to use that understanding of competitors to see sort of side-by-side comparisons of how we're doing relative to those competitors. But to move forward, to think more about content and how are we going to determine the right content and or keywords that we want to incorporate into our content marketing efforts. Because I think, part of where this comes from as well, as most people out there know, these days SEO has really become synonymous with optimized content marketing. And so one of the components we make available is a quick way to identify what's simply my top performing content. And one of our primary widgets or beacons for that is called Top Performing Content by Visibility. Here we have a small algorithm that runs to look at the combination of the content that you're publishing or the content that you have on your website or externally, and how it's performing or how well it's ranking within the search engines for a given set of keywords. The focus for a lot of content marketers in this case would be maybe not so much to focus on these pieces of content that are effectively considered strong, but to look at the ones beyond that that are considered average or weak. Those are the pieces of content that have some degree of authority or discoverability already, in terms of, or momentum is another good word to use. So these are pieces of content that are maybe ranking for a couple of keywords, maybe ranking well or not. And ultimately, we want to focus on those and build up their authority so that eventually all of our content is considered strong, is ranking really well for multiple keywords, maybe in multiple geographies, multiple languages, what have you. So to give you a quick scenario, I might look at a piece of content like this farm and small business page for this particular customer. And I see that this piece of content's weak. Well, what does that really mean? I can click on that piece of content, drill down into, again, some of the underlying details. And that's really the goal with our dashboards, is to give you the top level insight to say, okay, where are the issues or where are the good things that are happening? And then drill down into underlying data that help to give me some of that kind of additional what's next, or what's the next step I should take in terms of building up the authority of that piece of content that's weak. So in this case, the reason that this piece of content is weak is, yes, it's ranking or has ranked at some point for a couple of pieces of content. So in the eyes, or a couple of keywords. So in the eyes of Google or the other search engines, and you'll see in this case, I'm looking specifically at Google Canada, but I have other search engines that I could choose from and focus in on. Yes, it's ranking or has ranked at some point for a couple of keywords, but ultimately right now it isn't. So there's some momentum there, but I need to build up the authority of this page. And there's a few ways I can do that. I can look at the technical aspects of that page, and there's a couple of optimized buttons here that will actually allow us to go in and run a quick analysis of the page based on a given keyword to see if it's as optimized as it can be for that keyword. Alternatively, I could go into the top 50 search results and really just get a quick sense of, okay, where exactly is this page ranking or not for those keywords? Who are the competitors in or around me? And or are there any backlinking opportunities? Are there any directories or listing sites or really places that I could potentially publish content external to my website? So that top 50 can be a useful resource. Lastly, if I'm thinking about the other option I have for building up the authority of this page, and that's building some additional content, some complementary content, then I want to know which keywords to use. And again, I've got a couple of keywords presented already here, but I might want to go in and discover what other keywords are related or can I also use within the context of this piece of content I'm creating. So if, let's say, the keyword is portable band sawmills, I could click on this Discover button and see other suggested keywords. These become keywords that I could potentially incorporate into the piece of content I'm about to create. And so let's move forward with that scenario then. Now I've decided that, yes, I want to create a piece of content. I need a supporting piece of content that's going to link back to my farm and small business page. And so I'm going to jump over to Mintent now and begin the process of creating this piece of content. So to start with, I've got this calendar available to me, and this represents all of the content I'm creating, whether it be online or offline. This can be blog posts or articles. Mintent's really about helping to collaborate and manage all of the content that you're creating. And you'll see that these are different sort of color-coded pieces of content. The legend up here at the top tells me exactly what those are. I've got some blogs, I've got some articles, I've got some email newsletters that I'm doing, some case studies and events. And I'm able to filter through these at any point. I've got some views that I can manage so I can get a look at only my blogs or only my articles, whatever the case may be. So this is really just sort of the management area where I can organize both myself and my team to better coordinate my content marketing efforts. Now, I went ahead and I already created a blog post, or a blog post has already been created in support of that farm and small business page that we looked at earlier. So down here, I've got how to mill some imperfect logs. Everybody really wants to know a lot about that. So from there, we're jumping into the actual content item. The content item, as you can see, is made up of a couple of different components. Look at this as sort of two columns. The first column represents the item itself and describes the item. You'll see there's a number of fields. All of these fields can be customized based on the type of content and your processes around creating content. What data is important for you to capture about this content, and ultimately these fields are used for reporting purposes, whether it be filtering in the calendar you saw earlier, or for reporting on the types of content you're creating over time. Those types of stats and metrics. So I would create this piece of content, I give it a title, I define the content type. In this case, again, it's a blog. In this case, I need to define the topic and a description. If we're thinking about this from an SEO perspective, we can pull over the keywords that we discovered so that anybody that's collaborating on this piece of content can know these are the keywords we need to reference. Perhaps we pull in the meta description as well that we want to use from an SEO or an organic visibility perspective. Then I can scroll down, and in terms of actually collaborating on this document, I've got a couple of different options. We've got a draft editor that would be available up here. So depending on the type of content, we can use a WYSIWYG editor within our system to create and collaborate, manage that piece of content, or we could alternatively upload a file or upload from a URL. And you see a couple of examples here. We've uploaded a Word doc that we can collaborate on within the system. And or we also uploaded a YouTube video that's been incorporated into this blog post. And so on an ongoing basis, as we're creating and building out and working on this document, all of these two assets are being maintained within an asset library. And that would be great, moving forward if we're needing to repurpose these assets at some point in the future, what have you. Now down the right-hand side, the right-hand column, you'll see there's also within Mintent a full workflow capability. Specific workflows can be tied to different content types. So if this is a blog post, I might have a specific flow where it goes from conceptual through to a draft, images are incorporated, there's an approval process, and then ultimately it's published and or distributed out through a variety of different channels. And so again, you can see there's that opportunity all the way along to approve. And if I approve, add comments, all of that can be managed through email notifications, or notifications are maintained within the system, and that collaboration can happen, and there's an efficiency around just the management of this piece of content. Now we're going to create this piece of content. Ultimately, it's going to be ready to publish and again distribute. And presumably, we're wanting to distribute this content out through a variety of different channels. The go-to these days is naturally social. And if I'm distributing content out through social channels, that's where sometimes I can lose track of just how well that content's performing. And so that's where our Trackable Links component comes into play. And you'll see within the context of this creative brief, for this content item that I've created, that there's also the opportunity to add in some trackable links. These trackable links, if you think, or if those out there who are familiar with Bitly or Google UTMs, think of this as a Bitly on steroids, or a more friendly way to create Google UTMs. What we're looking at here is a smart URL that's a combination of a shortened URL. You'll see that we've got mintent.id as our shortened domain, along with a random path that's added. So we can create based on a URL that we want to track. So this is the URL of the actual blog post that we're going to be distributing out through whichever channels. And again, I said social off the top, but that could be social channels, through paid advertising, through doing Facebook ads or Google AdWords perhaps, or maybe even offline. We could take a shortened URL, put it on a billboard, or perhaps put it in a magazine, use it on a brochure at a trade show. Really anywhere that we want to understand whether or not our content is receiving engagement, we can use a shortened or trackable link to be able to track that. And so by default, you'll see we have our URL to be tracked. We generate a generic trackable link that can be used virtually anywhere. But another option might be to create unique URLs for any or all of the channels that we're distributing content to. So in this case, we've decided on 3 channels. We're going to distribute to Twitter, to Facebook, and to Instagram. And for each of those channels, there's a unique URL that's created. We would take or copy and paste that URL then into our Twitter post, our Facebook post, and or our Instagram post. And once that URL or those unique URLs are clicked on, we deliver the traffic or the visitor to the destination URL, ultimately our finished blog post. And as that redirection happens, we're tracking that engagement, tracking that click. The resulting data then will show up within a simple dashboard like this. So for in this case, 4 channels, we had our generic link along with Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We can get a quick sense of just which of those channels is delivering the most clicks and or unique clicks. To the right of that, if this is an ongoing campaign, we can see when those clicks are happening. We can understand a breakdown again of engagement by channel, just a different way of visualizing that data. And then to the right, this can get interesting, particularly for our global sawmills client who has a global audience. Perhaps for this campaign, they're targeting a specific geography, and they want to know whether or not and that engagement's happening where they're expecting it to happen. So we're tracking exactly where in the world those clicks happen. And now we can key in on whether or not we're getting engagement in our desired geographies. Ultimately, all of this data is being captured in real time. So if this is an organic campaign, or even better if it were a paid campaign, so we've got Facebook ads, Google ads running, and we're spending money, we're putting out budget, we're posting content out through these various channels. We want to understand what's working and what's not working, not once the campaign's over, but right now as it's happening. So we can reorganize our resources, whether it be our time and or our money and our budgets, to the channels that are delivering ultimately traffic and then beyond that, a return at the end of the day. So I was given sort of 15 minutes. I think I may have gone just a little bit over, but that's an overview of start to finish and the scenario of using, again, SEO data, understanding keywords, understanding which pieces of content and keywords to focus on, taking that through to creating and collaborating around the creation of a piece of content, managing the workflow around that content, and then ultimately distributing that content and reporting on its overall performance.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I know it was probably ambitious to try and show everything in that short a time frame, but we didn't want to keep everybody too long. But we do have some questions, which we'll get to. One of the questions is on pricing, and so there's a range. There's a lot of capability in here now and a lot of different things, and you don't have to use it all. You can use parts of it. It does start at free. There is a freemium version of it on our website where you can go and sign up to 5 users and up to 20 pieces of content. You can start playing around with it today. And then for different, it goes up to big enterprise level customers that have custom pricing packages. But one thing I want to say is that for those maybe who've used Mintent before and are looking at the analytics for the first time, it can seem a bit overwhelming. And it can be, for sure, but there's a lot of power in there. And so one of the things that we've also offer is a concierge service. So as part of our subscription to the software, you can also subscribe to sort of the expertise. People like Jeff and Chris that will jump on the phone with you periodically and look at the reports and the data and help you out. So, okay, so one of the other questions here is pretty specific, Jeff. Probably, how much weight and priority do you think search volume should be when selecting a keyword to focus on?
Yeah, great question. I mean, search volume is a pretty primary metric because you want to understand how much potential traffic can a given keyword produce. That being said, a lot of SEO pundits would say that because there's an increased focus on long tail keywords, which don't necessarily have as much search volume, it's important to focus attention around keyword groups or clusters, as we call them within the SEO module on the gShift side. So certainly search volume is an important determinant, but I'd also look at a couple of other factors. One is just how well are you ranking? How much authority or momentum do you have? Because even if a keyword has high search volume, if there's a lot of competition and you're not ranking that well, you don't have that much momentum, you have to decide whether or not it's important to go after that search volume, or if it makes more sense to take a look at lower search volume but broader groupings of keywords or niche keywords where you can convince Google that you're the authority and drive traffic that way. That whole notion of long tail, a lot of keywords with low search volume could add up to the equivalent of short tail keywords with larger search volume. I hope that answers the question.
Great. Another question here is, clearly coming from a Mintent customer. They're asking about how the reporting will fit into the existing Mintent reporting. Will we have to go into each calendar item to review the tracking? So this is an excellent question. Obviously we're paying very close attention to the demo. So today there's three pieces. There's the SEO module, there's the content marketing platform, the kind of Mintent Classic we call it, and then there's the tracking, Mintent Trackable Links, which the first point of integration is what Jeff showed today. And today, yes, you have to go into each piece of content, each content calendar item, and see how well it's done. And we have a version of the software coming out in Q2 of this year, where you will have an overhauled dashboard where you'll be able to see all of the clicks by various different ways. You can look at it by a campaign or by channel. So you won't have to look at it by individual item. You'll be able to compare content items to content items and channels to channels and that type of thing.
Yeah, if I can maybe elaborate on that a little bit as well. Yeah. It really depends. I think sometimes there will definitely be, as Matt mentioned, a global view of how well are multiple pieces of content with a campaign performing. But beyond that, there's times when you do want to drill down and understand how a specific piece of content is performing. In terms of not only traffic and or conversion, but maybe from an organic visibility perspective. So we'll be looking moving forward to providing kind of that holistic view, down to the granular individual piece of content level, but then also at a more holistic.
Yeah, we'll offer the kind of best of both worlds there, and if somebody does want to see more detail and understand our roadmap and when this, how it's going to play out, we would be, absolutely happy to do that for you. Get on the phone and talk about that with you. Another question, to use the SEO feature, does Mintent have to be able to integrate with your current tracking tool? How does Mintent pull this information? I'll take a stab at that, and then Jeff, maybe you can jump in as well. So I think, so we have our own SEO tool, which is what we showed today. And you can certainly use other SEO tools with Mintent. Over time, we will be bringing these together. And so you'll be able to look at the information in the SEO module and the keywords and that type of stuff, and it will kind of automatically move over into Mintent as you're creating content. So there'll be kind of this seamless back and forth. That's sort of the current plan. There's no current plan to integrate with other SEO products, but certainly nothing preventing you from using other SEO tools with Mintent. Jeff, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I wasn't completely sure on which tracking tool the question was related to. If it was, as you said, another SEO tool. Or if, when the question is, how does Mintent pull this information? On our SEO side, that's our own proprietary, technology. We're gathering, as I mentioned earlier, keyword position data on a daily basis at a national level, every 2 days at a local or a mobile level. So that's data that we're pulling in to our system and making available through the SEO module. So I don't know if that elaborates or answers the question, but
yeah, we'll reach out
for sure.
And if we can help answer that question and more specifically or more details, we'd be happy to. We're definitely over time, so let's end it there. Anyone who didn't get their question answered will reach out. We're also one of the things that we do have in our software is a SEO audit tool. So we can actually start by looking at what you have now and look for technical SEO issues or other areas for optimization improvement. And so for anyone that is on the webinar today, we're going to offer that for free. So if you hit our website, there's multiple ways to get in touch with us. Megan will also send out an email with this recording, and there will be a link there that you can click on that and submit your URL, and we can go from there. But would love to have you sign up if you're not an existing customer, or if you're a gShift customer, you can sign up and play around with Mintent. Happy to get on the phone and do more detailed demos. And also would love to, you know, start getting involved in SEO and starting off with our free audit. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And I hope you all have a good day, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention.